Hi, I'm Dave Young, and I'm here with Nate White, and we're with Paragon, and we're just here to give you a brief market update and just kind of our outlook for the upcoming year. So Nate, can you give us a brief update of what happened in January?
Sure. So far, the markets are off to the best start in almost 20 years. So a lot of people are underinvested. It seems like the market's kind of moved before anybody can react. And it's kind of a flip-flop from last year. The things here in the first part of the year that did the worst last year have done the best, like materials, emerging markets, those type of things. The things that did the best last year, like dividend stocks, utilities, staples, have performed the worst. They've underperformed so far. So kind of a flip-flop, and now we'll have to kind of see what the outlook is going forward now.
So pretty much anyone who was following what worked last year is not happy so far this year.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people chased what did the best. They're probably disappointed a bit so far. We'll have to see, though.
So what are your feelings going forward as far as, here we are, February 1st today, going forward at the end of the year? There seems to be three factors that are big. What are your feelings about earnings in the economy?
Well, so far, like what we're looking with our models, the momentum still seems to be up. You know, there's a lot of angst out there, but with earnings, they're still set to grow. We just had a good January because it's earnings season and corporate earnings growth was still strong. The corporate earnings growth will slow as the year progresses, just on a relative basis. It looks like maybe 6-7% growth. So not as good as it's been. It's still growth, but it's coming down. The economy, you know, there's a lot of debate out there. It looks maybe set 2.5-3%. I think you'll see earnings growth start to come down at this stage in the business cycle. We're seeing earnings growth usually starts to match where the economy is growing. So you'll have a slowdown, but still growing.
What would be a potential where the S&P might wind up, or the Dow, if we see earnings like what you're talking about?
Yeah, at the current levels of PEs, or current valuation levels, 12.5 to maybe 13. If you hit about $1.05 in earnings for the S&P, we could see easily the upside potential could be, depending on where that PE goes, anywhere from in the mid 1400s to the mid 1500s could be our kind of extreme upside target.
Okay.
Well, that could be 10, 15, 17% higher.
So just on straight earnings, we've got
straight earnings, right?
Fairly positive situation. Right. The big drag last year was Europe. Right. What's your thoughts on that?
Europe so far, it's been that off and on with Europe. Right now, it's kind of on the back burner. It looks like they're putting some stuff together, but however, we're going to have to see in the next couple of months. They're trying to get something together for Greece. The ECB has done their 3-year loan agreement for the banks, and that's kind of tempered a lot of the risk. And the hope is now they can kind of kick that can maybe more permanently down the road, at least in the intermediate term. And if you do that, I think you're seeing a lot of the risk lifted off of Greece, and that could support some of the valuation expansion, which helps the market throughout the year.
Okay, so overall, right now, Europe looks positive versus last year it was a disaster.
Right.
Finally, the other wild card that we like to talk about is the election. Here we are again, and we've got this election coming up, and I mean, it could go either way. It could go a lot of ways. Right. But what are your thoughts on the election impact? Yeah,
it's usually election year, historically is a good year for the market, and it just depends. It could introduce some volatility closer we get to the election in November. But if the markets rally hard ahead of the elections, you might see a pullback after. But the one thing is it could introduce some uncertainty. The closer we get to elections, depending on where the market has moved, maybe ahead of that too. If it's maybe down ahead of that, it might do the opposite. After the election, but it's just kind of an unknown factor, with both parties and their different takes on things and how that's going to affect stuff.
Right. So the election is pretty much a wild card right now.
Right.
As we get closer and closer to the actual election, hopefully it'll get more defined.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, and thanks for watching Paragon TV.